On November 26, 2025, a fire started on some bamboo scaffolding outside a residential building in Hong Kong. But this wasn't just any fire. Within hours, it exploded into one of the city's deadliest urban disasters. So today, we're going to peel back the layers of this tragedy at Wang Fuk Court to really understand how something like this could even happen.
I want to start with the most important number of all, 55. That's the devastating human cost we're talking about here. 55 people lost their lives, and that includes one firefighter who made the ultimate sacrifice trying to save others. It's a number that puts everything else we're about to discuss into perspective.
What's so terrifying about this fire is just how fast it all happened. Look at this timeline. At 2:51 in the afternoon, you get the first report. A fire on some scaffolding. Seems manageable, right? Well, just 11 minutes later, it's already a level 3 alarm. And then, in just over 3 hours, it hits level 5. That's the highest possible alert, something Hong Kong hasn't had to issue in 17 years. That speed, that escalation, it told everyone that this was no ordinary fire.
And that brings us to the central question, doesn't it? Building repairs, renovations, these happen all the time in a city like Hong Kong. It's routine. So how did this specific project, spiral so completely out of control? To get to the bottom of it, we have to look at the place, the materials, and the critical decisions made long before anyone even saw a spark.
Okay, first, let's just try to grasp the sheer scale of what happened that day. For a city built on density and vertical living, this was truly a worst-case scenario.
The setting here is just absolutely key. Wang Fuk Court is a classic Hong Kong housing estate. It's been there for over 40 years and is home to nearly 2,000 families. Think about that density. The fire didn't just hit one building, it jumped across 7 of the 8 towers. The response had to be massive. Over 1,200 rescuers were deployed. It was so bad so quickly that the city's chief executive had to declare it a major disaster. That high-density environment is crucial for understanding why this was so devastating.
Right away, investigators on the scene knew something was very wrong. They described the way the fire spread as unnatural. It just didn't behave like a normal building fire. So now, we're going to dig into the technical failures that let this blaze become an uncontrollable monster.
This was the #1 question for the fire department. It's the puzzle they had to solve. Fires are typically contained. They don't just leap between huge concrete towers. So what was different this time? What was the fuel that fed this incredible inferno?
And the investigation found 2 main culprits, 2 illegal materials. First, the protective nets covering all that bamboo scaffolding, they were not the legally required fire-retardant kind. Instead, they burned like crazy, basically acting as a giant wick that just pulled the flames up the building and across to the next one. And second, they found highly flammable styrofoam boards were used to seal up windows. Once those got hot, they acted like a potent accelerant, helping the fire punch right through into people's homes. It was the absolute perfect storm, all created by materials that should never have been there. So when you hear level 5 fire, I really want you to understand what that means. It's not just a big fire, it's the city's highest state of alert. It means the situation is completely out of control. The fire is spreading, and there's a real risk of buildings collapsing. It requires a full-scale, citywide mobilization. And remember, it was the first time in 17 years they'd had to declare one. That's how serious this was.
Okay, so we know what happened. Illegal, flammable materials. Which, of course, leads us to the next, much tougher question. Who let this happen? Now we have to peel back another layer and look at the trail of human decisions, the trail of negligence that led to this.
And that's the question that turns this from a technical investigation into a criminal one. An accident is one thing, but using illegal materials on this massive scale, that suggests something far more serious. So, who is going to be held accountable?
The answer from the authorities came back swift and serious. The charge they're pursuing isn't just a fine for a building code violation, it's manslaughter by gross negligence. That's a charge that says your carelessness wasn't just a mistake. It was so extreme, so reckless, that you were responsible for causing people's deaths. It sends a very powerful message.
And a charge that serious means people are going to be held responsible. Police arrested 3 individuals from the engineering firm that was in charge of the whole renovation. We're talking about 2 company directors and an engineering consultant. This shows that the investigation is going right to the top, to the people making the decisions, and they say more arrests could be coming.
So why would any company take such a deadly risk? Well, as it so often does, this might come down to money. A lot of money.
This was a 3.3 billion Hong Kong dollar renovation project. That's a staggering amount of money, and it suggests there was immense financial pressure. And when there's that much pressure, it can create a powerful, dangerous incentive to cut corners on safety to protect profits.
But here's the thing. It's easy to just blame a few people. The truth is, a disaster of this magnitude rarely happens just because of a few bad actors. It's usually a sign that the entire system has deep cracks in it. Cracks that allow a tragedy like this to happen in the first place.
Let's break down how the system failed. First, there was a huge disconnect in the regulations. Get this, the authorities had actually sent out warnings about needing fire-retardant materials just 1 month before the fire. The rule was on paper, but it was completely ignored on the ground. Second, you had management loopholes. The building's own owners corporation, the residents, were supposed to be supervising the project, but they just didn't have the technical know-how to challenge the professionals. And third, you have the powerful economic incentives to cheat the system, where contractors are under pressure to use cheaper, non-compliant materials to win bids and make a profit.
And this quote really just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up the core problem. You can have all the safety regulations in the world written down somewhere, but if there's a severe disconnect, if they aren't actually being enforced on the construction site, they're basically useless.
But, you know, amidst all the finger-pointing and the investigation, another story was unfolding. And it's the story of a city, a community, reeling from this tragedy and how it responded to an unprecedented crisis.
The financial support was immediate and just immense. We're talking over 160 million Hong Kong dollars pledged from major charities. This wasn't just a government response. This was the entire community, the entire society, stepping up to help those who had lost everything.
And it went so far beyond just money. An entire network of support just sprang into action. 400 temporary apartments were opened up for families with nowhere to go. Dozens of organizations were handing out emergency cash. You had 24/7 crisis hotlines for emotional support and so much practical help, too. Things like free childcare, food, and even free funeral services for the grieving families. It was an incredible all-hands-on-deck response from every corner of the city.
So the story of Wang Fuk Court is a painful lesson, but it's also a powerful testament to a community's resilience. But as the city mourns and the investigations continue, it leaves all of us with one final, deeply unsettling question. In a city of skyscrapers, a city of constant construction, how many other buildings out there are just one spark away from the very same fate?